Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome to day 46 of the Chronological Read Through the Bible. Today is only covering one chapter, and that is chapter 7 of the book of Numbers. Now, I know you're going to wonder, well, why just one chapter? Well, first off, this is the second longest chapter in the Bible. It's, I think, ranked somewhere among number 4 as far as the total number of words chapter-wise. And then why 7? Why are we just... Well, again, this is the chronological read through the Bible. I won't keep saying this. I just wanted to reiterate for someone that wonders why are we skipping about. This is staying chronologically. And you're going to see this in verse 1 of chapter 7. Now, on that day, Moses had finished setting up the tabernacle. He anointed it and christened it with all its furnishings, and the altar and all of its utensils. He anointed them and consecrated them also. And verse 2, which pretty much outlines the rest of what's happening in this chapter. Then the leaders of Israel, the heads of their father's household, made an offering. And then we're going to go through hearing the different offerings that are brought. And it's going to go through each one, and you could say, well, this is the same offering, just different families bringing bringing the same offering to the tabernacle. And why then? Why doesn't it just say each family brought this? Because each person's offering is seen as unique, individual, and they are being lifted up. This is sort of a way of honoring these people throughout time. And of course, among the Levites, these offerings are dispersed according to their task, their jobs, which they performed at the tabernacle or in serving the Hebrew people. It's worth reading just to see how this unfolds and how the community is involved in this worship of the Lord. Something I wanted to point out, and we had noticed this term used a few reads back, and that's shekel. And today we know of the shekel as being coinage. However, at this time, coinage actually didn't exist until about the 3rd century BC. That was not a common use. So I think around, about 300 years or so before Christ was when coinage first started being used, and it was actually in Turkey where that first came about. Before that point, people were using their rings or various gold jewelry, and it was more of a trade system, really. So here, what is the shekel? Well, it's more of a weight or a measurement. So that's what's taking place when you hear of the term shekel being used here over and over. I wish it had chapter 6. We're going to go back, of course, to chapter 6 when it hits in the chronological read. It really covers the Nazirite vow and all of the procedures of that. And I'm really looking forward to just discussing that and even how we see that take place throughout Scripture. As each of the offerings are brought to the tabernacle, they're the gifts which people are bringing, not just to the Lord, but to the Lord's servants. How do you help the Lord's servants? How do you help provide for those who are serving? Now, the Lord ultimately is who provides, but He stirs the heart for people to give. Sometimes people's hearts are stirred to give, and then they never actually give. I want to encourage you to ask the Lord, how can you be a part of His work today? Not just in your physical labor, but also in your giving. In verse 89, the last verse here, it says, "Now when Moses went into the tent of meeting to speak with him," to speak with God, "he heard the voice speaking to him from above the mercy seat that was on the ark of testimony. From between the two cherubim he spoke to him." So I don't know whether Moses had the veil between the holy place and the Holy of Holies. The Holy of Holies is where the ark was, and the holy place was where the altar of incense was. I don't know. Maybe Moses did have that privilege of going right before the Ark of the Covenant. We know that later only the high priest would be allowed into the Holy of Holies, and he would only go there once a year. Now, I know then that adds to, well, how did the priests who were responsible for moving the ark during transport, how did they do this? And tradition says that they would back in to the Holy of Holies, never looking at the ark, and then they would drape basically a covering over the Ark of the Covenant. So it wasn't like they were just marching around with the ark completely visible to the people, and that supposedly they did not view it themselves. We don't know. That's just tradition. And then when we see how the scriptures unfolds in covering the Ark of the Covenant, we can see that that would make a little bit of sense as to that historical teaching with that. Notice the procedures of reverence, basically the ordination of those who are serving, and how they are set apart. God's servants are set apart because they're held at a high standard. And later we will see when we get into the book of Samuel, 1 Samuel, that those who are serving at the tabernacle at that time are not very loyal to the Lord. They are sinning, and we'll see how they're dealt with. Brothers and sisters, I do hope that your day's going well. Until tomorrow, God bless.